Welcome back to another video, guys. My name is Megha Bansal and I'm one of the IELTS trainer at LeapScholar. I'm back again with another video on speaking tips. I know that this video is all you would be needing when you would appear for an IELTS speaking test. And believe me, before your speaking test, you will be needing only these tips to ace your speaking test. Alright, don't need to worry that these tips are tested or not. They are 100% genuine, and I believe that just after watching this video, you'll be able to boost your score a lot. Really, if you are speaking at 6.5 before watching this video, then your score would go up to 7. All right, if you're at 7, then you'll go up to 7.5. I can guarantee you this. So let's get started with overview. All right, as we all know that speaking test has 3 parts. Part 1, which has introduction. All right, part 1 consists of 5 to 6 questions, and examiner would try to know you in this. All right, this part would last for 4 to 5 minutes only. Coming on to part 2, that's a long term, where examiner would give you a card. All right, that's called as cue card. On that card, a topic would be written, and you have to speak on that topic for 2 minutes continuously. All right, the speciality of this part is no questions will be asked. Okay. Part 3. In part 3, it's a more of a follow-up round of part 2. Examiner would try to know your opinion and would try to see whether you are able to communicate in English for a longer period of time or not. That's it. So this is just the overview. Let's get started with some general tips. Okay, these general tips will help you in acing the overall IELTS speaking test, and towards the end, I'll be moving on to some task-specific tips, all right, like some specific tips for part 1, part 2, and part 3. So let's get started. So guys, starting with general tips, okay, so number 1 tip which you all have to follow is that you don't have to rush. Okay, you'll be marked on your speaking and not on your answers. So make sure that you are not focusing too much on answering the questions correctly. You should focus on speaking English correctly, right? It's an English speaking test. Okay, it's not a school test where examiner would see, okay, like how correct are your facts. No, you have to speak English correctly. Even if you are speaking in wrong direction, then you can say, oh, shall I divert it? Okay, so did I divert from the topic? All right. Okay, moving back, that's it. You can do that too. You are going to be marked on your speaking and not on your answers. So focus on speaking English correctly and fluently rather than focusing on your answers. All right. Coming on to tip number 2, which is don't rush and speak too fast. Sometimes we tend to speak too quickly and want to show the examiner how fluent we are, right? But you have to take care of your pace and notice the pace of your examiner, right? This is the best way to know on which pace, okay, in which speed you have to speak. Right? You have to speak slowly, clearly, and at a regular pace. You shouldn't be too fast or too slow. It should be normal as you speak in your native language. That's it. Moving on, use linking words. I just hope that you all know what are linking words. Linking words are those words which helps us in connecting few sentences or phrases, for example, and, therefore, moreover, in addition to. It's imperative to use linking words because according to the parameters, the assessment parameters, if you use linking words, you will be getting a really good band under fluency and coherence, plus lexical resources too. So they are imperative. Try to include 4 to 5 linking words. Okay. Next, paraphrase the question. To buy more time, you can always paraphrase the question. For example, the question is, where do you live? Rather than just saying, I live in Delhi, you can say, I dwell in Delhi. I reside in Delhi. Okay. Paraphrasing is what? Putting the same thing into different words. This will help you in buying more time. One thing. Next thing, you will be able to show off your vocabulary, which you already know, and you will be able to answer the question more correctly, okay, without even thinking too much. So paraphrasing the question is must. Coming on to fifth tip, reach the test center early. Okay, why is it important to reach this test center at least 30 minutes before your test time? Because you need to, make yourself comfortable with the environment of your test center. You should be prepared mentally. I know that none of you have, I know that none of us have control over psychology, but still we need to be, relaxed before we appear for exam. And that's why it is very, very important to reach the test center at least 30 minutes early. Number 6, use a wide range of vocabulary. It is very important to show how good your vocabulary is, as we all know that one of the parameters also talks about lexical resources. That's another name of vocabulary. All right. So rather than using simple words, for example, we tend to use a lot of time very good, very important. So try to replace very words with more good words. For example, rather than using very important, we can use imperative, significant, crucial, essential, right? So we need to use a wide range of vocabulary. You don't have to use a lot of good words, but try to use some to grab good bands under lexical resource parameter. Tip number 7 is maintain eye contact with the examiner. It is very, very important to maintain the eye contact. Imagine that I am talking to you right now. If I keep on looking here, okay. If you'll do this, you are doing what? You are ignoring the examiner. All right. Examiner would know that you are getting nervous. Examiner would know that you are not well prepared or not very confident while speaking English. That's why it's imperative to maintain eye contact with the examiner. Look straight into the eyes and talk confidently, just like you talk in your native language or talk to your friends. Okay, so these were some general tips. Let's get started with task specific tips. Okay, talking about task number 1. Task 1, that is part 1, which is repo building round, that will last for 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, so in that part, examiner would ask you 5 to 6 questions, which will, and you have to answer every question in 3 to 4 sentences. Okay, please do not answer it for more than 3 to 4 sentences, because in that case, examiner would be able to ask very, very less questions from you. Okay, so try to answer in 2 to 3 or 4 sentences, maybe not less than that, not more than that. In terms of time, one answer should last for about 15 to 20 seconds. That's it for part 1. Starting with part 2. Okay, as we all know that speaking part 2 is the long turn, which is the cue card round, and you have to speak for about 2 minutes. You'll get 2 minutes for speaking. Okay, for 2 minutes, try to utilize at least 1 minute 30 seconds for speaking. Okay, whenever you practice at home, put on the timer, keep it in front of you and see whether you are able to speak for 1 minute 30 seconds or not. Okay, so minimum length should be 1 minute 30 seconds, and on 2 minutes, examiner would stop you. All right, you don't have to worry about when examiner stops you. It's okay, because in part 2, you get only 2 minutes for speaking, and examiner would stop you after 2 minutes. So it's perfectly fine if examiner stops you. Tip number 11, that you should expand your answer, especially in part 2, by giving or telling a story or giving reasons, or whatever may be the reason. You can just cook up a story. All right. As long as it's believable, it's perfectly fine. And you don't have to worry about the facts being accurate. You can cook up your own story and try to extend your answer. All right. Do not finish it up before a minute, because examiner would need time to evaluate your speaking. Right. And you have to show how good your English is, how well you can communicate in English. And that's why you should speak for about 1 minute 40 seconds. Okay. Moving on to part 3, that is our last task, some task specific tips I'll be sharing with all of you. Tip number 30, don't focus on your opinion, as we have discussed. All right, examiner would not judge you. For example, if the question is, who should be responsible for the care of elderly? It should be family or it should be government. All right, who should be responsible? And if you answer like this, that people are responsible for their own care, then it's perfectly fine. Examiner is not there to judge you. Okay, so don't focus too much on answering the question correctly. Just be very, very fluent and go with the flow. Buy yourself, tip number 14, that's buy yourself time, but by not using these fillers. You have to learn some good connectors, and you can start with, well, that's an interesting question. So you bought yourself 1 or 2 seconds, right? And you can think. So rather than focusing too much on this should be avoided. Imagine that I am telling you something and I keep on taking pauses and I keep on doing okay after that. So that's not a good practice, right? You should learn some quick fillers to buy some time if you have to think. And you can even pause for a second, like I did, right? You did not even realize that I paused for a sec and thought of something. So you have to do the same if you need some time. Don't use that creates a bad impression and that affects your fluency. All right. So last tip number 14, that's the bonus tip. By yourself, by learning some good phrases like I showed you. Oh, well, that's a good question. Oh, I never thought that you'd be asking me. That's quite interesting. By learning some good phrases before you appear for your exam, you can actually buy yourself good time to think without even letting the examiner know that you are buying time to answer the questions particularly. All right. So that's all, my learners. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you really like the video, do like, subscribe, and share our channel. We'll be posting some more tips and tricks regarding all the modules. See you next time.